Garry Kasparov, widely regarded as the world's topmost chess player ever. So you can imagine the shock 23 years back when he actually lost to a computer. He not only rattled the entire computer fraternity, but also the chess fraternity, because nobody could ever imagine man losing to the machine. So Garry famously said, "I'm the first knowledge worker whose job is being threatened by a machine." He then added, just a week back, saying that 96% of current jobs will be vanishing. So if all the jobs are going to be vanishing like, an ice cream on a hot summer day, then what does the future hold for us? There is hope. And for that, I will segue a bit into my journey through media and education for some useful pointers for the future. So it started off, of course, as I said, with media, a whole lot of interviews. This is the President of India. These are shows which appeared in both the Europe and Northern American continent. The Economic Times went pink about 25 years back. I was part of that launch team for Investors Guide, and my job was to predict future share prices. Spoken a lot on entrepreneurship. We'll get to that sometime later. It's an interesting insight to share. Actually directed even film stars for a glamour ad film, so that's Shilpa Shetty there. And the thing is, this picture brings me to a story of a small girl who really loved to multicolor everything inside. On her first day at school, she was told by her new teacher, no more coloring like that. If it is the sky, it has to be only blue. If it is this, let's say, the forest, it has to be only green. So she came away a little unenthused, and we found her subdued over the next few days. And finally, my wife said that, look, why don't we do something which creates happiness for children like her? Why don't we create some theatre offering or something which can be wonderful activities that bring happiness to their life? So it was this quest for happiness about 20 years back that led to the birth of Achievers. So what you see as if I'm wearing a hat is actually my daughter, pretending to be a hat. At that time, besides TV anchoring, I was also grooming a lot of CEOs for actually facing TV cameras, how to handle press interviews, tricky questions, tricky reporters. Mainly, what I'm trying to say is, I was handling work with the biggies, the big shots. So what about the small ones, the daughters and many other children like her? So that's when the idea came that let's combine musical theatre, which has, right from dancing, singing, and enactment, role play, along with poetry recitation, and then we bring it in a simple form that children can assimilate, and then finally perform it as if it's a musical theatre a la Broadway style show. We ended up doing hundreds of stage shows, and eventually, this is one of our favorite shows. We actually did an original script for Arunima Sinha, the first lady to climb Mount Everest on one foot. This is a chart-topping musical in the sense that over the last 20 years, we've done it dozens of times, starting with Apollo Hospitals in Chennai for their Founders Day. And this specific poetry track has really inspired from President Kennedy to Jawaharlal Nehru. And the latest show, this is what we are all waiting for. We have very recently concluded a show where the chief guest was from NASA, and the theme was to do with STEM education infused with a lot of performing arts. We were not sure if the head of the project from NASA is going to take to it very kindly, because we expected somebody very highbrow Rao serious, focused only on the science part, but we got the shock of her life once she came for our show. So let us take out a few quick pointers from this journey in media and then, of course, the performing arts as to how we can get ahead in the future. Perhaps the most important pointer would be that happiness is at the core of it all. A child or a student or even a professional in any office setting will be the most productive if they are fundamentally happy. If a person is not happy, then psychosomatically it can lead to all kinds of issues, health issues, possibly absenteeism, a child also not wanting to go to school. So at the core, happiness has to be your uncompromising target. You need to be really focused on achieving an engagement level with the team that everyone feels willing and happy to be part of it. The most effective elements are, of course, storytelling, role play, any kind of group activities can really bring out the best in children. And students, like for example, when we do workshops for corporate executives, we find that team building activities are great for bonhomie, getting them to cohere into a much tighter unit and come out on top of their targets. Right. So then, of course, we are having lots of curiosity-based activities, which are basically to trigger creativity, because we find that in the future, if automation is going to be the rage everywhere, the only tasks which will not be automated will be the ones which are creative. So if you want an insurance policy for the future, then it is very important to ensure that we focus on developing our skills connected with creativity. So what I'm getting at is, for the future, a multi-disciplinary approach will be very critical to gain ahead, to ensure that you get the brightest opportunities that the world has to offer. When speaking of multidisciplinary, I'm reminded of one visit to a village in Jharkhand, a very remote tribal village where I was making a film on education. It was about the one teacher school. The entire village had one school and only one teacher. And how wonderful was the teaching mode there. I remember the favorite lesson was to hit the local pond, a shallow pond where they would all jump in. And it would be an exercise in life sciences, it could be laws of physics, they would do surface tension. So it was an amazing sight, and to me, what is embedded in my mind is that is immersive learning. So whenever I meet a fancy educational technology person these days talking about immersive technology, my mind will only go back to that original thought of children jumping into water, truly immersive experiences. Now, we find that if the jobs of today are going to be very different from what they are in the future, then how do you prepare for jobs which don't exist today? Almost all of you will be working eventually in jobs or categories which don't exist today. So how do you really get ahead for those kind of jobs? When you don't know what those jobs are, how will you prepare for it today? The paradigm shift here would be that we essentially learn to learn. So whenever we are faced with a certain project or a certain assignment which needs certain skill sets, we should be able to learn the skills at that very moment so that we perform and complete that task. This will be a mode of lifelong learning which will ensure that not only do you stay young, which will be a very happy collateral benefit, but ensure that whatever future job opportunities come up, you are always ready for it. Now, I am reminded of one terrible tragedy which happened, 2004, where you all remember the Asian tsunami. It so happened that my mother was in the Andaman Islands at that time, and she witnessed firsthand a very severe earthquake. People know the tsunami, but not the earthquake part. She was very close to the epicenter, so it was a very violent earthquake. And later on, news reports did come out that about 200,000 people around that part of the world had died. So when my mother returned to the mainland, and she told us about the sheer agony and the aftermath of the tragedy. So that spurred us to do a musical, a kind of a disaster preparedness theatre show based on the life story of a girl who was on holiday with her family on the coast of Thailand. And when she saw suddenly that the water had gone back and the seabed was exposed with fish flopping around, she remembered a school geography lesson saying that the water will come back, this time is a very big wave, and it's going to smash everything. It's called as a giant tsunami. She told her parents, who immediately warned the lifeguards on the beach there, and everyone was cleared from that beach. With the result that that was the only spot on the entire coast where no one died. So if we can impart theatre, through theatre, disaster preparedness, which is one of the goals of the United Nations. She's at the United Nations with the ambassador of disaster preparedness at that time being President Bill Clinton. And this show, in fact, we performed in front of Mr. Rahul Gandhi, and he couldn't get up, although we were told that he'd be there for just 10 minutes. He stayed for the entire show for nearly an hour and a half. Now, the power of theatre to bring home learning of even grave topics cannot be exaggerated. So we must really focus on how to bring learning in the future, even of the gravest subjects, through theatre to make it more relatable for the students. Let's now talk a little bit about black holes. We all know that they suck away right from matter, they will take away your life. The gravity is so powerful, even light can't escape. But do you know that even time cannot escape? And do you know that those black holes are the ones which are in your hands or maybe your pockets? We are talking, of course, of your mobile phones. Absolutely right. Now the thing is, statistics show the sheer number of notifications people get and the amount of time people are spending on the mobile, generally for non-productive things, is going to be the biggest bugbear for your future growth. So if we can guard against that and somehow get on top of, the urge to pick it up with every single ping, then we are going to be vastly richer with time. And that will ensure that we have more bandwidth to accomplish much more, and there will be no competition in front of us because others are all drowning in their mobiles. So that's one good point to keep in mind as, because mobiles have become virtually weapons of mass destruction, because they become weapons of mass distraction. But in my mind, they can be made into weapons of, mass disruption in a positive way. How? By using it for your vocabulary development or instant research or several positive things for which the mobile can be used. It can really kind of save our life, particularly in this tweet come TikTok world. Right. So we find that till now, students have been rewarded mainly for rote learning. But the future belongs to critical thinkers, people who can solve problems, people who can address real life problems and real world problems, and learn how to apply knowledge to come up with solutions. So that needs to be the approach for future to ensure that we are going to be solving the needs whichever pop up at that time, rather than rely purely on memory techniques, because those are not going to get us ahead in future. When it comes to logical reasoning, we find that Sudoku is a great help, particularly when getting students to learn the process of elimination, which in fact is a great thing for example, people applying for standardized tests. I'm a master trainer for GRE, SAT, and so on. A lot of times we are inculcating in students the process of elimination. So if a student can pick it up in a fun way, solving puzzles like Sudoku, that's a great way to go ahead. Or out-of-the-box thinking with 9-dot puzzles, we find those are the ways to build future readiness. So that is something which I will strongly advocate, that your presentation skills, your copywriting skills, how to write persuasively, these are going to be your vital tickets for future readiness. And I'm reminded, of course, since I'm from the stock market world, Warren Buffett was once asked, which is the greatest skill that you think anyone needs for preparing for tomorrow? And he straight away said, not about investments or not about stock markets, he talked only about public speaking. So that is a great lesson for you to have, that this is the utmost skill that you need to attach importance to ensure that you have a place under the sun. And referring to stock markets, of course, which has been my first love, they are always hunting for multi-baggers. Now, what are multi-baggers? These are shares, stocks, which go up not just by 10-30%, but they go up manifold. We're talking about 5 times, 10 times. So they're called 5 baggers or 10 baggers. But looking around this room with wonderful talent and such potential being exuded, I can see 100 baggers and 1,000 baggers. So I'm waiting very much for the day when you and you will be here on the red dot, which will then become a much bigger red dot to reflect your prowess, and me watching you to see the exploits that what you've accomplished and what great ideas you will contribute for furthering humanity. Thank you. Thank you.